Hi everyone, welcome to our second annual Norse Networking event. We're really excited to have you all here, and I'm not going to keep you with a lot of talk, but I just wanted to start off by thanking TD Bank, our sponsors for this event. And then I'm going to hand over things to Giulietta Fiore. I'm going to screw it up because I'm tired. I say your name all the time. From the Historic House Trust of New York City. She is the deputy director there and has a lot of good insight for us, so take it away. Thank you.
Hello. It's wild to have a microphone. It's so like long and skinny, you know? Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so my name's Giulietta, as Melissa had said. I am the Deputy Director of the Historic House Trust of New York City. So I think the first thing that I have to do is give a background on the Historic House Trust. Some of my partners are here, they know who we are, but we are a little bit of a niche organization. So we are a public-private partnership with the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. We have been in operation since 1989 at a time when there was no expertise in the Parks Department for historic preservation. So that was kind of the need that we were filling when we were founded in 1989. And since that time when we were founded in 1989, when we had 15 historic houses under the stewardship of the Historic House Trust, we now have 23 across all 5 boroughs of New York City. So one of the benefits of the role that I'm in, and one of the things that I love the best, is being able to travel to all 5 boroughs and to really experience the diversity of sites here, the diversity of issues, the diversities of successes, and really see kind of a network of sites that are really striving to make New York City a better place. So, the other thing that I want to mention is we support our partners through a variety of different programs, which I will kind of walk through very briefly, but we genuinely could not do anything we do without our partners, our nonprofit partners who run the sites on a daily basis, like the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum folks, or the Morris Jewell Mansion folks, or the Old Stone House folks. They are the ones who are really in their communities every day, who know the needs, who are here to say a tree limb fell down, something like that. So we just don't have eyes everywhere, and we just don't know the needs of everything. So we're really grateful for their partnership, and it makes what I think is a really vibrant community. So that's the background. If you have any questions about who we are, please let me know or talk to me after. Again, it can be a little bit complex. And I'm also going to be talking about capital money, which is specifically a city thing, so I don't want anybody to like get scared with the numbers that I'm putting out there, because this is city funding. It's a little bit different than private funding. Just a caveat. Okay. So as I mentioned, we are across all we have 23 historic sites across all 5 boroughs. They represent, I'm saying 370 years of history. It's definitely well more than that. Most of these sites have been green spaces for the entirety of their history. The indigenous people who lived here have been stewarding these places for far longer than these historic houses have been here, and most of our nonprofit partners do tell that story. And this is just kind of a distribution of where the historic sites are. So you can see it's literally, we have one on the southern tip of Staten Island. It is at the south pole of Staten Island, that's Conference House. And then we have some north in the Bronx, and then the farthest east that we have is the Queens County Farm Museum. This is just kind of an example of the diversity of sites that we help steward. Gracie Mansion is up here. You all may know that as the mayor's residence. It is also a historic house. It was not always the mayor's residence. It used to actually be a restroom for the Parks Department for a while. It was a private house before that. It has a really interesting history. The Lewis Latimer House, I'm sure that many of you have been there. The director over there, Rand, is doing really great work, just did a reinterpretation of the house. The interesting thing about this house is it was moved. So this is not the original location of this house. It was moved from another area in Queens to this area for a reason that quite a few of our historic houses were moved, which is to save them from development. Moving them onto parkland actually was a strategy to make sure that they were going to be preserved for the future. The Hendrick I. Lott House is a really great house as well. It is currently not open to the public, but we are going through a capital project to restore the interior, and it will be open to the public. I'd say soon, but I'll say like 3 to 5 years. But it's really, really fantastic, and they have great ideas for how to make this a community space. And they're also not restoring the interior fully. They're going to kind of preserve it as kind of a, I'm saying a wreck just in terms of it. They're going to preserve the patina of the interior. Just a few more interior shots. Van Cortlandt House Museum up in the Bronx. This is the interior of the lot house that I was talking about. They're preserving some of the wallpaper peeling as part of the history of the house. And then the conference house on Staten Island. Okay, so our work, we have kind of three main pillars. Our programs have changed over the years as we assess the needs of our partners and the needs of our communities, but right now we're really focusing on historic building conservation, community engagement, and museum support and development. So I think first and foremost, we are trying to get the houses in a good state of repair. The city has been, the Parks Department has been struggling with an austerity budget for a long time, and it's been hard to get the maintenance that we need across the sites. We found that we have had to lean on our mandate as a public-private partnership and gain private support as well to establish some routines. For example, painting. We have a great partnership with Benjamin Moore to allow us to paint some houses every year. We painted 3 this year. We're going to paint 2 next year. And then along with this is something I'm going to be talking about in terms of accessibility is the capital program that we run, which is all part of this historic building conservation. Community engagement, we love to just kind of get out there. We love to be invited by our partners places. We love to just make community wherever we can. So this is Bruce Cannon. He is the head puppeteer at the Swedish Cottage Marionette Theater. Very cool. If you haven't been in Central Park, you should definitely go. It is a historic marionette theater. And then on the right there is curatorial support. We used to have a curator on staff. We do not anymore. Instead, as needed, we kind of provide curatorial support when a partner asks us. Great, so I'm going to talk about the capital program now. Again, we're talking city money. I'll go through it a little bit, but I guess I want to emphasize that there's a lot that you can do to improve accessibility and inclusion at your site without these kind of dollar figures, and I just don't want this kind of at the start of the presentation to kind of off-put anybody from the learnings that can be kind of taken away from this. So we have 23 capital projects ongoing across our historic houses, not one at each site, but we do have 23 across the 23 sites. The total capital funding that we have is $108 million. So again, this is city money. It has been advocated for over many, many, many years. I'll talk about the Morris Trammell Mansion in a second, but for example, we're about to go into construction for the Morris Trammell Mansion capital project, and advocacy for that campaign started in 2014. So it takes a long time, just like a private capital campaign, to get the money. And what we're trying to do going forward is bridge that gap to make sure that the maintenance, the exterior doesn't deteriorate while we advocate for that capital money. So what I want to point out here is the lines in blue are projects that specifically call out ADA improvements. So this was one of the main reasons that we advocated for the capital projects at these sites, is for ADA improvements to the site. Now, most of the historic houses capital projects have ADA improvement components to the work, but like I said, these blue ones are the ones that are specifically focused on improving accessibility. So the Morris Trammell Mansion. This is the first case study I want to talk about. I'm actually so excited that the Morris Trammell folks are here. This is the ongoing capital project. These are some kind of goals of the construction portion of the work. This is a little bit of a complicated project. It's been kind of split up into phases for a variety of reasons, but you'll see that 2 of the goals of this project are to construct an ADA ramp at the east entrance and to renovate the first floor bathroom to be ADA compliant. So those are 2 of the main goals of this project that we're really excited to complete. And then what I want to talk about here too is some of the nuances to the capital process and to kind of this design process that we're talking about in terms of a capital program and accessibility. So we redesigned this ramp in collaboration with the Morris Trammell Mansion and the Landmarks Preservation Commission multiple times. This was a conversation. This was something that a lot of collaborators talked about. This is something that we brought the disability community in on, and there was a large conversation about whether there would be a ramp or a lift into the historic house. And at the end of the day, essentially, it was decided that the Parks Department didn't have the resources to maintain a lift, and that a lot of people in the disability community find it really difficult to go on site and realize that a lift is broken. And that the best way is the simplest way, which is a ramp. Now, the Landmarks Preservation Commission has a lot of feelings about ramps on historic buildings. Essentially, the Landmarks Preservation Commission ensures that historically designated resources across the city remain historic sites and keep their integrity as historic sites. So we went back and forth with them and actually decided, it's a little bit surprising, but decided that the best way to design the ramp is not to integrate it into the look of the Morris Jamal mansion, but instead to make sure that you know that it was not original to the mansion. So the kind of black steel railings, I'm not sure if you can see, there's a variety of reasons for that, but essentially you would not mistake that as original millworking of the house. You would never walk up to the house and say, this is part of the original Morris Jamal mansion. And that was actually something that the Landmarks Preservation Commission wanted and that we worked with them to develop. Which is kind of maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but something kind of interesting to consider when you're thinking about historic preservation at your own sites. This is just the ramp proposal and some of the changes that we made over the time. So we needed greater visibility, a reduction in length is something that we talk about a lot, length of a ramp, width of a ramp, things like that. But, as I said, these capital projects can take a really long time. So it's not enough to just say, we have a capital project coming up, there's nothing that we can do in the meantime. So we were fortunate enough to get a grant from the New York Community Trust to address programmatic accessibility and innovation across our partner sites. And this year, in collaboration with some of our partners and the Cooperstown Graduate Program, we were able to launch 3 pilot projects across 3 sites to improve programmatic accessibility. And one of those projects was during the American Revolution tactile tour at the Morris Jamal Mansion. If anybody has any questions about it, they are here sitting in the back, not in the back, in the middle. You can definitely ask them about it. We really just kind of supported this work. The Morris Jamal Mansion ran with it with the Cooperstown Graduate Program, and they collaborated on it together. But it's essentially a way to get people involved in another way other than just seeing and hearing at a museum. So you're actually able to touch fabrics, to touch a powder horn, to touch candlesticks, and to kind of understand the weight and things like that with those tactile objects. And it helps to improve accessibility, but also it helps just to improve anybody's kind of sense of the museum, which is kind of the goal of almost all accessibility initiatives. Yeah, so definitely ask them about it, unless you don't want them to. Okay, next I want to talk about the Van Cortlandt House Museum in the Bronx. So this is a really big capital project that we have coming up to, as I said, seal the building's envelope. So essentially, we kind of found out that the roof, actually the dormers, are not as airtight or watertight as we would have liked. So you can see, this is embarrassing. I am absolutely airing our dirty laundry here, but you can see that there is snow inside the window here. There were a variety of reasons that this happened. This is actually upstairs, kind of in the attic area. There was just a little bit of a miscommunication with the staff, and it just wasn't raised as a red flag until we kind of went up there and saw this during a snowstorm, and we're like, oh, this is a problem. So we are working actively to address this through the design of a capital project. Now the issue is there are so many issues with the physical structure of the house that the accessibility components keep getting eked out of the scope because of budget creep. So, well, I guess not budget creep, but basically we're like, oh, well, we also have to do the dormers. All right, let's take that out of the budget. So we continually have to advocate for more funds to make sure that that stays at the top of everybody's list and make sure that it is addressed. And it will be addressed, which is fantastic. Something exciting that did just happen, we did install a temporary ramp into the Van Cortlandt House Museum. So you'll see this as before, it was an uneven stone step. And then we worked with Citywide Services, which is a division of the Parks Department, to install this ramp. It does need a few tweaks, but it's really a huge improvement. Actually, they just finished the tweaks, but they had to add some handrails at the end. They had to reduce the steepness of the ramp. But now that it is completely fixed and ADA compliant, it allows somebody in a wheelchair to access the visitor center of the museum, and once they're there they can do a 360 virtual tour, which is this. Access to the museum itself is a little bit harder, and that we will be waiting for the capital project to address. Something else that we've worked with the Van Cortlandt House Museum on, this was also part of our New York Community Trust funded accessibility and innovation initiative, is language access, which is also a huge portion of inclusion and improving access to a site and to a story that you're telling. So we worked with the Van Cortlandt House Museum to translate their historic tour into 3 languages. And the 3 languages are the languages they polled their community basically, and these are the people who visit the most, are the people who speak Russian, Chinese, and Spanish. So we helped them translate it into 3 different languages so that it's available for anybody who visits the museum. The museum at the moment is a self-guided tour, so this is really helpful for somebody who doesn't speak English and wants to experience the museum. Now I will say that translation in and of itself is not quite enough to get people in the door. So we also have launched a community engagement initiative with them that is funded through this project. We've launched a community advisory committee, asked local advocates to be on the advisory committee, and are going through kind of a strategic planning process with them. How do we get more people involved so that they can use these resources and feel empowered to visit the site as their own? All right, third and final case study is this place, the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum. Yeah, woohoo! This is also a huge capital project, many years in the making. These are just some of the kind of considerations. I don't know if you can kind of see all the way back there. These are some of the considerations when designing for accessibility that we've had to walk through at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum. Literally which way doors swing, things like that. But it's very exciting. This is kind of a profile. It's maybe a little outdated now, Melissa. But it's a bit of a profile. There is going to be this big ramp here, as you can see, and there's going to be an addition. The addition is a recreation of a building that was torn down in the 1920s.
It was torn down when this place became a museum in 1915, but it was the 1835 addition to this end of the house.
Be very exciting. You can ask Melissa all about that because she single-handedly raised the money. She and Meredith, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Single-handedly raised the money and is very involved in the design process as well. And again, this is one of the reasons why our nonprofit partners are so exciting. I mean, the Parks Department, Architecture and Engineering, our team can design in a vacuum, but until we know the needs of the house, it's not going to be a very effective project. These are some renderings of, again, it's a little bit outdated now, but these are some of the renderings of what the kind of ramping is going to look like. The landscape's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be very exciting. Yeah. And then we also worked with the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum on the New York Community Trust Accessibility Project to improve programmatic accessibility, and we supported them in creating, with the Cooperstown Graduate Program, these 360 tours through Matterport, which I'm sure a lot of you as museums have used. But we find it really helpful, especially for the Hessian Hut. I found this a really great idea because even if you go into the museum, can access the museum, the Hessian Hut is back here, and you might not get to it, you might not feel comfortable, you might not have time. There are a million reasons why you might want a 3D tour of the Hessian Hut. So I think it's great to expand it just past the museum itself and start thinking of it holistically as a site. And again, you can ask them about anything. They're there. Okay, and I just want to end with, if you don't have capital funds, it doesn't mean that you can't do anything to improve accessibility at your site. There are many ways, and you should feel empowered to make the changes that you need in order to start making those incremental changes to improve accessibility. So, one example that I wanted to show, we worked with an organization called United Spinal to create transition plans for all 23 of our partner sites, and that's essentially a plan that says if you make these changes, you will be ADA compliant. So just by having that roadmap, a screenshot of which you can see up here, it's really helped us inform capital projects, informed our maintenance work, and anywhere that we can just add an accessibility improvement in, we do that as best we can. So one example is the Alice Austin House bathroom. The Alice Austin House on Staten Island has an accessible bathroom in quotation marks because it wasn't actually ADA accessible as was laid out in the transition report that we got. And the transition report was sitting there, and we hadn't kind of eyed this bathroom as an important change to make immediately until something really embarrassing happened. And it's a friend of ours who works for the Parks Department and is a person who uses a wheelchair. came to the Alice Austin house for an event and used the bathroom and said it was a terrible experience and that we needed to change it and that it would be a really easy fix. And we were so embarrassed, and we were like, all right, Chris, what do we need to do? And he was like, look at your transition plan, but all you have to do is take this bar out. I don't know if you can see, but it's a little, take this bar out, add a bar behind, and it was about a $40 fix plus labor. So it was a little bit annoying to get, labor through because it was like a tiler, it was like a few different people. But for $40, we have improved access to this bathroom and allowed our friend to be more dignified when he visited the museum and not have to be in an embarrassing situation. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't catch, you said the partner that can help if you don't have capital funds was United.
Oh, it was United Spinal.
Spinal?
Yep. So United Spinal is it's a consultancy, and I'll just be very transparent, for about $2,000 per site, they came out and did, I think, 2 site visits for each site and did a write-up of everything that was not ADA compliant, where it was in the actual ADA law, and what we needed to change to make it ADA compliant.
So, okay, very good to know.
Yeah, and it was, like I said, $2,000 per site. It was a really great investment. We use it all the time, all the time. And the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't, I mean, it doesn't change. It's just something that's a great resource for you to have. I will also point out that this is a stopgap fix for this bathroom. Technically, according to the ADA, this bar right here is not long enough. It needs to be longer. And technically, this bar behind the toilet needs to be closer to the wall, and then also the handle needs to be on the other side of the toilet. But we've talked to people who are wheelchair users, we've talked to people who are going to be using this bathroom, and this is so much better than it was. And again, it was $40 and a few days of work. And while we wait to do a bigger overhaul, this was a great change that we were able to make. This is just, again, programmatic access. We also worked with a consultant, Swaby Access, who was fantastic, and she helped us with some of the programmatic improvements that we were working towards. And also just universities in general are fantastic resources. I'm sure you all know that. And then we also had some funds to do some small projects. Again, for lighter lifts, smaller amounts of money. I think this was about $575.